When we think of the Wild West, we picture danger, shootouts, bandits, snakebites, stampedes. But what we don't picture, what Hollywood never shows, is just how dangerous the so-called medicine was. Because when a cowboy got sick, the real threat wasn't always the illness, it was the treatment. This was a time before antibiotics, before sterilization, before anyone understood what germs even were. Doctors didn't wash their hands. Surgeons reused tools. And a lot of medical advice came from guys with zero training and a bottle of something brown that smelled like regret. In the Old West, if you had a headache, someone might bleed you with leeches. If you had asthma, they'd hand you a cigar. And if you got shot, well, you better hope the local barber had whiskey, because that was your anesthesia, antiseptic, and emotional support all in one. At Beyond the Wild West, we go deeper than dusty legends and saloon showdowns. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the ridiculous, dangerous, and sometimes hilarious medical cures that real people actually trusted. From swallowing mercury to blowing tobacco smoke up, well, places tobacco should never go. These are the treatments that remind us just how far medicine has come and how close our ancestors were to dying from the cure instead of the disease. So sit tight, maybe put down your lunch, and join us as we count down 10 ridiculous medical cures from the Old West and why every single one of them was a terrible idea. Top 1. Mercury Pills. Take this poison, you'll feel better, or you won't feel anything at all. Back in the 1800s, mercury wasn't just used for thermometers. It was a full-blown medical superstar, prescribed for everything from constipation and syphilis to toothaches and depression. Yes, you read that right. Got a stomachache? Here, swallow some mercury. Feeling low? Let's see what a heavy metal does to your mood. Doctors handed out blue mass pills like candy. These little pills were packed with mercury, mixed with chalk, honey, and other binders, and people took them daily, sometimes for months. One famous fan? President Abraham Lincoln. He reportedly took mercury pills regularly until he noticed they were making him a little too angry and erratic. Wonder why? The pills caused drooling, tremors, memory loss, and severe mood swings, textbook mercury poisoning. But back then, these symptoms were often blamed on bad blood or nervous conditions, not the toxic metal they were willingly ingesting. In some towns, mercury was also used as a topical remedy. Got a rash? Rub mercury ointment on it. The logic was, if it burns, it must be working. Meanwhile, your skin was absorbing a neurotoxin straight into your bloodstream. So why did people trust it? Because it did something. It made your body react violently. Which, in an age where most cures were just sugar water or prayers, felt like progress. In the Old West, a trip to the doctor could end with a prescription for poison. And the worst part? People lined up to take it. Top 2. Whiskey for everything. Why go to the doctor when you've got a shot glass? In the Old West, there was one cure that everyone believed in. Cowboy, outlaw, preacher, or saloon girl. Whiskey. Sore throat? Whiskey. Gunshot wound? Whiskey. Snakebite? Double whiskey. Childbirth? You guessed it, whiskey for her and the midwife too. To be fair, alcohol did dull pain, temporarily, which made it seem like it worked. It was the frontier's version of anesthesia, antiseptic, antidepressant, and dinner drink, all in one convenient, flammable bottle. Doctors, if you could call them that, often prescribed whiskey as an official treatment. Mixed with herbs, that's medicine. Mixed with gunpowder, now we're talking emergency surgery. One popular remedy involved pouring whiskey over wounds and then drinking the rest to forget about them. But here's the twist. The whiskey back then wasn't exactly top shelf. It was often homemade, unregulated, and potentially lethal. Some batches were cut with turpentine or tobacco juice. Others just went bad in the heat. So your painkiller could end up giving you actual hallucinations, liver failure, or just permanent blindness. Yet it remained the go-to remedy, not because it was effective, but because it was accessible. It was warm, it was strong, and it made you care slightly less about the infection festering in your leg. In modern terms, it's like skipping the hospital and chugging hand sanitizer. But hey, in the Old West, if your arm got bitten by a rattlesnake, you didn't need a tourniquet. You just needed the right kind of buzz. Top 3. Bleeding the patient. Because losing blood was totally healing. Feeling faint? Let's drain what little life you have left. In the 1800s, one of the most common medical treatments in the Old West was also one of the oldest and dumbest, bloodletting. That's right. Got a fever? A cough? A weird rash? Clearly your body had too much blood. The logic, if we can call it that, was based on the ancient idea of humorous, where your health depended on balancing bodily fluids. Blood was considered the main troublemaker. So doctors and barbers, yes barbers, would cut open a vein or apply leech therapy to suck the sickness out. But here's the kicker. The sicker you were, the more blood they took. People already weak from fever or injury were told to lie still while up to a quart of blood was drained from their body. Then they were told to rest and drink water, which was probably contaminated, of course. Many patients didn't recover. Some died from the loss of blood. Others fainted, worsened, or developed infections from unclean tools. And if they didn't die, the doctor would proudly take credit for saving them, because clearly it would have been worse without the treatment. This wasn't just fringe snake oil stuff. George Washington was bled to death. That's how mainstream this nonsense was. Out west, where hygiene was minimal and doctors were often self-taught or drunk, the bleeding craze lived on far longer than it should have. If you were lucky, they used a clean knife. If not, well, welcome to sepsis. So the next time you see an Old West hero shot and bleeding, remember, back then, it might have been the cure. Top 4. Blistering. Because nothing says healing like second-degree burns. You're not getting better until your skin starts bubbling. In the medical minds of the 1800s, pain wasn't a side effect. It was a sign of success. And that's where blistering came in. The idea was simple. If you were sick, your body was imbalanced. The fix? Burn the skin until giant blisters formed, then pop them to draw out the illness hiding inside you. Logical? Number popular? Very. Doctors used hot metal rods, mustard plasters, acid poultices, anything that could literally cook your skin. The more dramatic the blister, the more convinced everyone was that it was working. You had a fever? Blister your chest. Pneumonia? Blister your back. Headache? Slap some acid on your scalp and watch the magic happen. And by magic, we mean infection, permanent scarring, and unimaginable agony. Sometimes they'd even intentionally reopen old blisters to keep the toxins flowing. Never mind that your body was already fighting an illness. Now it had to deal with chemical burns too. Double the suffering, half the chance of survival. To modernize, it sounds barbaric. But in the Old West, blistering was considered advanced medicine. You weren't really being treated unless you left the doctor's office with bandages, burns, and the vague hope that your skin would eventually grow back. So next time you think you're having a rough flu season, just be grateful nobody's holding a hot iron to your chest and saying, "Don't worry, this means it's working." Top 5. Smoking for asthma. When your lungs needed a little more. Smoke. Having trouble breathing? Here, light this. In one of the most backwards moments in medical history, doctors in the Old West actually recommended smoking. Yes, smoking, as a cure for asthma. The idea? If your lungs were tight and struggling, the solution was to fill them with warm, soothing smoke from burning herbs. Because obviously, the best way to fight a wheeze is with a Wheeze Plus. People were sold asthma cigarettes, hand-rolled mixtures of tobacco, belladonna, stramonium, a toxic plant, and sometimes opium. You'd light up, inhale deeply, and wait for the spasms to stop. And to be fair, they often did, because your body was now too busy processing poison to focus on asthma. These herbal cigarettes were advertised as relaxing, natural, and doctor-approved. No one questioned how ironic it was to treat shortness of breath with something that literally filled your lungs with irritants. If you coughed harder afterward, that was just the treatment working. Side effects: try hallucinations, vomiting, irregular heartbeat, and occasionally, death. But hey, at least you weren't wheezing anymore. In hindsight, giving a struggling asthmatic a smoke break sounds like something out of a dark comedy. But in the Old West, it was cutting edge. People trusted doctors. Doctors trusted tobacco companies. And the lungs? Well, they never really had a say. So next time someone offers you a natural remedy, remember, there was a time when the cure for gasping was gasping with fire. Top 6. Arsenic pills. Because what doesn't kill you might still kill you. Feeling sluggish? Try a little poison. It's practically invigorating. In the Old West, arsenic wasn't just something you slipped into your enemy's drink. It was a wellness trend. Yep, arsenic, the same lethal chemical used to kill rats, and sometimes annoying in-laws, was marketed in pill form as a cure-all. Low energy? Take arsenic. Pale skin? Arsenic? Digestive issues? You guessed it, arsenic. The belief was that in small doses, arsenic could stimulate the system, purify the blood, and even make you look healthier. In fact, it was sold under charming names like Dr. Fowler's Solution, or arsenic complexion wafers, promising to clear up blemishes and give your cheeks a healthy pink glow. Spoiler: that glow was your organs panicking. People took arsenic regularly, building a tolerance like it was caffeine. Some frontier women swore by it to stay youthful-looking. Cowboys popped it for energy. And a few daring doctors prescribed it for everything from syphilis to arthritis. But here's the catch. There was no quality control, no dosing guide, and no understanding of just how thin the line was between therapeutic and deadly. Too much arsenic, and you got nausea, hair loss, organ failure, or a quick trip to a shallow grave behind the general store. It was the original beauty is pain philosophy, except the pain was internal bleeding. So yes, Old West medicine thought poison was medicine, because clearly nothing says healing like slowly cooking your liver from the inside out. Top 7. Swallowing gunpowder for stomach problems. Explosive relief, straight from the powder keg to your gut. In the Wild West, when your stomach ached, options were limited. You could hope it went away. You could chew on a mystery root. Or, if you were feeling particularly unhinged, you could swallow a pinch of actual black powder. Yes, gunpowder. The same explosive mix used to load bullets and blow holes in saloon walls. Some folks believed it could clear out the digestive tract, reduce inflammation, or even stimulate sluggish bowels. Others swore it helped with colic, cramps, or parasites. The theory? The sulfur and saltpeter had cleansing effects. The reality? You were eating literal explosives. There are recorded cases of people mixing gunpowder into water or whiskey and gulping it down like some kind of frontier kombucha. The result? Occasionally, it did cause dramatic effects in the bathroom. Also occasionally, internal bleeding, poisoning, vomiting, and, surprise, death. And if you're wondering whether anyone ever accidentally ignited after this cure, well, not exactly. But the idea that some poor cowboy might light a cigar and turn himself into a one-man fireworks show? That fear was real enough to make it into folk warnings. In the end, swallowing gunpowder didn't cure anything. except maybe your ability to make good choices. But in a world where germs were still just a theory and whiskey was a food group, gunpowder probably seemed logical. So there you have it. The West wasn't just wild, it was willing to try literally anything. Even eating explosives, all in the name of better digestion. In the glamorous version of the Old West, folks faced danger with grit, guns, and guts. But behind every showdown and cattle drive was another kind of wild frontier, one filled with blistering poultices, burning elixirs, and cures so ridiculous, it's a miracle anyone survived long enough to tell the tale. From drinking mercury to applying manure, the average settler's medicine cabinet was less science, more roulette wheel. And the scariest part? They meant well. These weren't charlatans. Well, not all of them. Many were desperate people trying to survive in a world with no doctors, no pharmacies, and no idea how germs worked. They trusted traveling salesmen, folk remedies, and whatever their neighbor's cousin swore worked last time. The result? A lot of snake oil, a lot of suffering, and occasionally a miracle, or at least a story that didn't end in the grave. Today, we laugh and cringe at what they tried. But the truth is, their failures paved the way for real medicine. And while we might not smear cow dung on wounds anymore, thankfully, the spirit of doing whatever it takes to stay alive, that's as old as the West itself. This has been Beyond the Wild West, where the myths get messy and the cures get weird. If you liked this twisted trip through the medicine bag of yesteryear, hit subscribe, ring the bell, and stay with us as we keep pulling the truth out of the dust. Because history isn't just dramatic. Sometimes it's downright disgusting. Cowboy.